What's going on YouTube? My name is Zach with Android Digest, and I am so excited today because I have the Google Pixel 6 Pro and I've had it for almost a week now, and I am so excited to review it for you today and to show you camera samples and to let you know how good this phone is and if it is worth buying. So let's get straight into it and let's get this review going. So Google is really trying to make a splash in the market with these Google Pixels, and I'm not really surprised, honestly. We've known that Google, they just weren't quite as good at marketing in the past, and they've really gotten it together this year because we've seen a ton of leaks, and now we're seeing a lot of people getting these Google Pixels, and that's Google really just being smart. They want to be really good at marketing, and they just didn't market these phones. They really came with a ton of improvements on these Google Pixels. And one of the most incredible things of all that we're really seeing right now, it's just the prices on these Google Pixels. You see, the Google Pixel 6 Pro, a lot of us expected it to release at $1,049, but no, it did not. It released at $899. So think about the competitors out there, right? Think about the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Think about that Galaxy S21 Ultra, and both are phenomenal phones, but this Google Pixel 6 Pro is not only a phenomenal phone, but it's also much cheaper than those rivals. So this Google Pixel 6 Pro, it is a interesting phone, and honestly I think it's one of the best phones we've seen in quite a long time. I'm going to give you some cons about this phone, but they really did a great job with the marketing, with the price, and they did an even better job on the design. Now that is a controversial thing for me to say because some people really don't like the design of this phone. I've got the black version here, and you could see here this big camera bump all the way across the back, and some people hate that, but for me, I just like something fresh. I think we've seen a lot of phones that look so similar, and it's really refreshing to see a phone that just looks different, and it looks really cool, I think, when you put a case on it as well. So I really like this, and I also like that the camera bump, if you put this phone on a table, it's going to lean the phone up ever so nicely, and you're not going to have to worry about your phone rattling around whenever it's on a table. This phone also has Gorilla Glass Victus on the back and the front of the phone as well, and so does the Google Pixel 6. And that's what's so incredible again about this lineup. You have a lot of these same features coming to the Google Pixel 6. And I will let you know in this review what's different between the Pixel 6 and this Pixel 6 Pro. But this Pixel 6 Pro has a great design overall. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see two speakers here. You'll also have a speaker as well on the top of the phone. That's really difficult to see, but you will see a speaker there. And you have on the side of the phone your power button, your up and down on your volume. I know some of you are going to be disappointed that they don't have like an accented power button on this phone. That is a little bit different, and they did get rid of from the Google Pixel 5 the fingerprint sensor on the back, and you have a in-screen fingerprint reader, which does work very, very well, by the way. Now this phone does weigh 210 grams, and I normally don't measure things in grams, but a lot of you do. And if you look at this phone and compare it to something like the iPhone 13 Pro Max, that phone weighs 240 grams. So this is 30 grams lighter, and I did the math, it's roughly 13% lighter than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So this is pretty good. This phone does feel good in the hands, and it does not feel too heavy, which is very important for a lot of people out there. All right, now let's talk about the display. So if you see on the front of this phone, you do have this little camera up here, and you have a 6.7 inch screen. Now this is a curved display, so it is curved. Some of you are not going to like that, and some of you really like the idea of putting a tempered glass on your phone, and I completely get that. So the Google Pixel 6, the regular version for $599, it does not have a curved glass, so that's one thing you do need to keep in mind. Now another difference between the regular Google Pixel 6 and this Pixel 6 Pro is the refresh rate. So this does have a 120 Hertz adaptive refresh rate, and for those of you who don't really care about that, let me just say scrolling on this phone is very smooth. So if you're scrolling through different content on your phone, you're going to notice, man, this is super smooth, and it makes the phone just feel so good with performance. Now the regular Google Pixel 6, it has a 90 Hertz refresh rate, so it's still going to be very smooth. So the scrolling on the Google Pixel 6, it won't be quite as smooth as this Google Pixel 6 Pro, but it's going to be pretty darn close, and a lot of you probably won't even notice. Now, the resolution on this phone is absolutely amazing. It's a 3120 by a 1440 resolution, so almost everything on this phone looks amazing. The screen is absolutely gorgeous. Everything about this phone is really flagship level, and the compromises you're going to see are going to be very, very minor. The display is great, the performance is great, there's so much that's great about this phone, but one compromise that they did make with this phone is in the brightness level. Now, I can't confirm this, okay, because I don't have some nit tester. I can't test the nits on this screen myself, but I haven't seen a lot of info on it, but I have heard that it has 500 nits of brightness and 800 nits of peak brightness, okay? Now, when I look at that, I say, okay, that's pretty darn good. That is good brightness, but it's not quite as good as something like the Galaxy S21 Ultra, at least from what I'm seeing and researching so far. Now, let's talk about performance for a second, because a lot of you were wondering, hey, how is this new Google processor going to perform? Because both the Google Pixel 6 and the Google Pixel 6 Pro, they both have that new Tensor processor. So a lot of you, when you see this phone, you're going to wonder, hey, how is this going to perform under day-to-day use? And you need to know that this phone is very, very fast. Now, this phone is claimed by Google to be 80% faster than the Google Pixel 5. 80% faster than the Google Pixel 5 is actually what flagship phones are like today. So this phone, it has flagship performance, and that's the main thing you need to take away from this, okay? This is very, very fast performance. I didn't have any hiccups or any lag on really anything, and this phone has 12 gigabytes of RAM, the Pixel 6 Pro, and the regular Google Pixel 6, it has 8 gigabytes of RAM. So there's not a lot of compromise, honestly. If you get the regular Google Pixel 6, I think it's a great value, but this phone is really just trying to give you the best of the best, and I think what's incredible about that is they're doing it at that lower price point compared to all the other flagships. It has 128 gigabytes of storage in this device, and again, you can upgrade that and get higher tier models. But whenever I think about all this, right, and I think about the performance and the display and how good the design is on this phone, I'm in love with this Google Pixel 6 and the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Now, for you, you might be thinking I'm just gonna like be a crazy fanboy and everything, okay? And I've got to say, I've criticized a lot of Android products on my channel. That's really what I do. I did also criticize Chromebooks, and I do criticize Chromebooks on my channel because sometimes there are some devices that just aren't up to par. But this phone, it doesn't have a lot of issues, at least so far in my week of testing. Now, I know all of those things, they sound amazing and they sound very, very exciting. But that excitement continues, and I know a lot of you want to know about the camera, and check the timestamps in the description. We're going to get there. But the battery life is also incredible on this device as well. This has a 5003 milliamp battery. All I'm going to say is this battery is going to last almost every single person through every day. It's one of the best battery lives you're going to see in an Android phone. Now, I haven't done a side-by-side test or anything with the S21 Ultra, but I would be very curious to see who wins. But honestly, I think this Google Pixel 6 Pro would have better battery life than even the S21 Ultra. But it's very, very good. I'm not saying it's better than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I really have no idea which phone would have better battery life, but it doesn't really matter in a sense because this phone's just going to have incredible battery life anyway, and I don't think even your heavy users are going to have to worry about having to stick this on a charger all day, right? This has a phenomenal battery inside this phone. And by the way, the Google Pixel 6, it's around 4,600 milliamps. I think it's just a little bit more, so that phone has great battery life too. All right, let's talk about cameras. I know that's what all of you are wanting to think about and talk about because we know Google has not really upgraded their cameras in a long time. And yes, Google has had amazing photos that they've taken in their previous Google Pixel phones, but a lot of that was just software related, right? They didn't upgrade the hardware in their cameras. And for the first time in a long time, we have upgraded hardware in the cameras for Google Pixel phones. So the Google Pixel 6 Pro, again, it has 3 cameras, and one of those is a 50 megapixel wide camera. It also has a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and again, the regular Google Pixel 6, it has both of those cameras. But there's one more lens that you get in this Google Pixel 6 Pro, and that is a 48 megapixel telephoto lens. And these cameras do not disappoint. I took a lot of portraits in very bad lighting of my family. When I took these portraits, I'm telling you, these are incredible, because if you compare them to something like the Google Pixel 4, for example, you're gonna see huge differences. And again, I'm not gonna take pictures in perfect conditions, right? So you could see all the perfect photos. I want you to also see what this phone is like in real life. So a lot of these photos I'm showing on the screen, they are just pictures I took throughout the day, in good lighting, in bad lighting, whatever the case, and these are some of the best photos I've ever seen out of any smartphone. I would definitely say this is going to have the best camera out there, and I know that's a little bit of personal preference. Some of you might prefer the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and you know what? That is just fine, but in reality, I really think this is going to be the best camera on a smartphone, and that's really no surprise. And I don't think we really need to say a lot. No matter what lens I used, I got really great photos. Now, there are some extra camera modes on this phone that are awesome as well. For one, you can remove someone from the background if they're just popping into your shot and there's some random stranger, okay? So they do have a way to do that through the software. There's also a motion mode so that if people are moving all the time, or maybe you're filming like a sport where people are constantly flying back and forth on a court or something, you could still get some good photos. And there's a lot of great things that this camera does. A lot of it is software related. Now, if you go to video, you do have 4K 60 frames per second on this outer lens. It looks like the front camera can just do 4K and 30 frames per second. So that's one minor, again, a minor con that you're gonna see. And that's really the theme of this phone. There are a couple minor cons, whether it's with brightness, or maybe you want 4K 60 frames per second in the front camera. Now, there's other things that are really awesome about this phone too. So they did upgrade the charging speed to about 30 watts. So that's a good thing. Again, you will have to buy an actual brick. It doesn't come with a charger in the box, at least the brick part. 30 watts should be good enough, and at least it is upgraded over previous models. This phone also can share its power with other devices. So that wireless power share feature, it really does come in handy, because if you have your watch, for example, or your earbuds and you want to charge them, maybe you're going on an airplane and you forgot your charger, you could just use your phone in that situation. So there are a lot of good use cases for that feature. I'm really glad they have it. This phone is also dust and water resistant. It is IP68 certified, if you were wondering. This phone does come with 5G and millimeter wave support. Well, one thing that is very interesting to note is that the Google Pixel 6, at least the regular unlocked version, it does not come with millimeter wave support. Now, from my research, I've seen that the Verizon or AT&T versions will, but they also cost $100 more for the regular Google Pixel 6, and at that point you're only $200 away from just getting the Google Pixel 6 Pro anyway. Now, the last thing I really want to talk about with this phone, it is the software, because that's a very important part of the experience. Now, we've heard that this phone is going to come with 5 years of updates. Well, we do need to clarify that and say that this phone will have 5 years of security updates, and it's going to have 3 big operating system updates. That is a little bit of a disappointment for some of us who wanted a little bit better software support on the Android side, but at least we do get those security updates. Now, we do need to talk about the software a little more, because Google has actually added some extra features to this Google Pixel, and I'm sure some of those will trickle down to other Google Pixel phones, but these features are amazing. For one, the speech recognition on this phone is unbelievable. So if I go to text someone and I'm texting my wife and I say, "Hey, how are you doing?" "I'm doing great." What you're gonna find out is it's going to automatically add punctuation for me. And I tried that on my Google Pixel 4. Of course, it did not add punctuation for me, and that is something that a lot of us are used to. That has changed, and that is an amazing feature on this phone. So if you do call a business, the Google Pixel will tell you what the average hold time is, and not only that, it will actually tell you what the hold time is normally on other days. So if you're wondering, hey, what's the hold time like on Friday, because the hold time is an hour right now, the Pixel will give you that information whenever you're calling. And then when you actually decide to place that call, it will actually read you out the prompts. So when it says press 1 for English, it will read it out for you and you're not going to have to worry about missing a prompt again. And all of these features are really, really incredible, and I really wish more smartphones really had these. All right, so if we're going to summarize this whole review, I've said a lot of positive things. So overall, if we're looking at this phone, it does have an amazing display with a great resolution. This phone has great performance, some of the best performance out of any Android phone. I haven't had any overheating issues, at least for now in my testing, so that is a very good thing. This phone also has a very, very great camera. In fact, I would say it's the best camera that's out there on any smartphone, including the iPhone. That's just a guess. I haven't done a side-by-side comparison, but I'm really telling you the camera is phenomenal on this phone. And it's also incredible that the Google Pixel 6 will give you 2 of those lenses anyway, so you're going to get a great experience on the regular Google Pixel 6 as well. It's got, again, phenomenal battery life. I would say this is going to have one of the best batteries out of any Android phone. There might be a couple that barely beat it, but it's going to be one of the best batteries, again, in a Android. And it's got great haptics, great speakers. So what are the cons? What are the negatives? And I haven't mentioned a lot, and that's because there just aren't a lot, okay? I wish this phone would get a little bit brighter, and I'm not saying that it's not bright, but compared to something like the S21 Ultra that just pushes it to the moon with brightness, I wish this phone could do the same and just give us a little bit more brightness. I also wish this phone didn't have curved glass. I just don't like it, and I know some people will. It's a cool design thing, but realistically, it's just harder to protect. And I think some of you might just want a smaller phone. This is a big phone. It's 6.7 inches. I'm glad it is lighter than phones like the 13 Pro Max, but it is still pretty big. Some of you might prefer something like the regular Google Pixel 6 because it is a little bit smaller. You could see here this phone can get some fingerprints on it. So there are some negatives to this phone. So you might be wondering, should you buy this Google Pixel 6 Pro? And is it worth the money? Is it the best Android phone out there? I'll just simply say it. I think this is the best Android smartphone that's out today. And considering it's retailing much lower than some other smartphones out there, I definitely think it is worth buying. But is it the best value out there, and should all of you buy it? And honestly, I would say it's not the best value. I think the regular Google Pixel 6 will be the best value. So I would say, and I'm just guessing here because I haven't reviewed the Google Pixel 6 yet, I plan to in the future on my channel, but I'm guessing that the Google Pixel 6 will be an ever so slightly better value by about this much. Not by much, but I think it will be a little bit of a better value, and I think your average person that can't afford a Google Pixel 6 Pro, I think those people should probably just get a Google Pixel 6. And if you're looking for the best of the best, I think the S21 Ultra is right there. I think it's close. But I would give the edge to the Google Pixel 6 Pro as the king of all Android smartphones. It's the best smartphone that's out today, in my opinion. Leave a comment below if you think the same. And thank you all so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. Give me a like if you can. Use those links in the description if you are interested in purchasing anything. And by the way, I hope you all have a phenomenal day and a phenomenal week. Thank you all so much for watching.